war in heaven. The war in heaven represents the ultimate cosmic conflict described in Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 through 9. This passage depicts a literal battle that took place in the heavenly realm before human history began. The war involved Michael the archangel leading God's loyal angels against a great red dragon, identified as Satan or the devil, along with his rebellious followers. Michael serves as God's chief military commander, described in Scripture as one of the chief princes and the protector of God's people. His name means "who is like God," which directly opposes Satan's prideful claim to equality with the Almighty. The dragon represents Satan in his full rebellious power, depicted with 7 heads and 10 horns, symbolizing complete earthly authority and political dominion that he sought to claim. The conflict reached its climax when Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. This was not a mere disagreement, but an actual war with real consequences. The battle determined who would maintain authority in heaven and who would be cast out. The text specifically states that the dragon prevailed not, meaning Satan's rebellion was decisively defeated despite his power and the support of his followers. The first rebellion established the cosmic scale of spiritual warfare that continues today. This was not a localized dispute, but a universe-spanning conflict that affected all of creation. The rebellion introduced the concept of evil into a previously perfect creation, creating the fundamental conflict between good and evil that defines human existence. Lucifer's fall. The fall of Lucifer is detailed through 2 key Old Testament passages that describe the original rebellion's root cause. Isaiah chapter 14 and Ezekiel chapter 28 provide parallel accounts of how the highest-ranking angel became Satan through pride and ambition. Lucifer, meaning light-bearer or morning star, held the most exalted position among all created beings. Ezekiel describes him as the anointed cherub that covereth, indicating he had direct access to God's throne and served as a covering or guardian over God's glory. He was perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee. The prophet Isaiah records Lucifer's 5 "I will" statements that reveal his prideful ambitions. He declared, "I will ascend into heaven," seeking to rise above his created position. He proclaimed, "I will exalt my throne above the stars of God," attempting to rule over other angels. He announced, "I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation," claiming authority over God's assembly. He stated, "I will ascend above the heights of the clouds," pursuing elevation beyond his assigned realm. Finally, he declared, "I will be like the Most High," directly challenging God's unique supremacy. Pride transformed Lucifer's heart from worship to rebellion. Ezekiel explains that his heart was lifted up because of thy beauty, and he corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. His physical perfection and intellectual brilliance became sources of self-worship, rather than reasons to glorify his Creator. The corruption process shows how ambition became rebellion against divine order. Lucifer's desire for independence from God's authority led him to recruit other angels to his cause. He used his position of influence and his persuasive abilities to convince 1/3 of heaven's angels to join his rebellion against their Creator. The Watchers. The Watchers represent a distinct group of angels who committed a different type of rebellion by abandoning their heavenly positions to interfere directly with human affairs. Genesis chapter 6 provides the biblical foundation describing sons of God who saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them, wives of all which they chose. These angels defied the fundamental boundary between the spiritual and physical realms that God had established. Unlike Lucifer's rebellion for power, the Watchers' sin involved crossing into forbidden territory by taking human form and engaging in sexual relationships with human women. This violation of divine order produced offspring called Nephilim, described as giants in the earth and mighty men which were of old, men of renown. The book of 1 Enoch, though not canonical scripture, provides extensive detail about the Watchers' rebellion that aligns with biblical references. According to this tradition, 200 angels descended to Mount Hermon under the leadership of Semjaza. They bound themselves with mutual oaths to carry out their plan, knowing it would result in divine punishment. The Watchers taught forbidden knowledge to humanity, accelerating corruption on earth. They revealed secrets of warfare, including the making of swords and shields. They taught cosmetics and jewelry making, leading to vanity and materialism. They shared knowledge of astrology and divination, introducing occult practices. They revealed pharmaceutical knowledge that included both healing and poisonous substances. Their punishment involved immediate imprisonment in chains of darkness. 2 Peter chapter 2 and Jude verse 6 describe how God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. Unlike Satan, who retains limited freedom to operate, the Watchers were immediately bound and await final judgment. The sons of God in Job 1. The book of Job provides a unique glimpse into the heavenly council, where angels present themselves before God's throne. Job chapter 1 describes a scene where the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. This passage reveals the organized structure of heaven's government and Satan's continued access to God's presence even after his rebellion. The sons of God in this context refers to angels who maintain their loyal service to the Almighty. These beings regularly appear before God to give account of their activities and receive divine instructions. The Hebrew term Bene Elohim specifically designates created spiritual beings who serve in God's heavenly court, distinct from human beings who are called sons of God through adoption. Satan's presence among the loyal angels demonstrates his role as the accuser of the brethren. He appears not as an equal, but as one who must give account for his activities on earth. When God asks, "From whence comest thou?" Satan responds that he has been going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it, indicating his restless search for opportunities to oppose God's purposes. The heavenly council imagery shows that despite his rebellion, Satan operates under divine permission and limitation. He cannot act against God's people without explicit authorization, as demonstrated when he must request permission to test Job. God sets specific boundaries on what Satan can and cannot do, proving that even in rebellion, fallen angels remain subject to divine sovereignty. This scene establishes the ongoing spiritual warfare between God's kingdom and Satan's rebellion. The accuser brings charges against the faithful, seeking to prove that human devotion to God is merely self-serving. However, his accusations must be presented in God's court, where divine justice ultimately prevails over satanic deception. Abaddon in the abyss. Abaddon appears in Revelation chapter 9 as the king of the bottomless pit, also called Apollyon in Greek, meaning destroyer. This fallen angel rules over imprisoned demonic spirits who await their prophetic release during the end times tribulation period. His name in Hebrew means destruction or place of destruction, identifying him as a being whose very nature embodies ruin and devastation. The abyss represents a specific prison realm where certain fallen angels are confined until their appointed time of release. This location differs from hell or the lake of fire, serving as a temporary holding place for spirits too dangerous to remain free. Luke chapter 8 describes demons begging Jesus not to command them to go out into the deep, using the same Greek word abyssos that refers to this prison dimension. Revelation describes Abaddon's future role when the fifth trumpet judgment opens the bottomless pit. A star falls from heaven, representing a fallen angel who receives the key to the abyss. When opened, smoke rises like a great furnace, darkening the sun and air. From this smoke emerge locust-like creatures with the power to torment humanity for 5 months, but they cannot kill those they attack. These imprisoned spirits under Abaddon's command possess supernatural abilities that exceed normal demonic activity. They appear as horses prepared for battle, with faces like men, hair like women, teeth like lions, and breastplates of iron. Their wings sound like chariots rushing to battle, and they have tails with stings like scorpions that inflict agonizing pain without causing death. Abaddon's leadership over these bound spirits indicates a hierarchy among fallen angels based on the severity of their rebellion. While Satan and his demons retain limited freedom to operate on earth, Abaddon and his followers committed acts so heinous that they required immediate imprisonment until God's appointed time for their final judgment. The 1/3 of angels. Revelation chapter 12 verse 4 provides the specific proportion of angels who joined Satan's rebellion, stating that his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. The stars represent angels throughout biblical symbolism, indicating that 1/3 of all created angelic beings chose to follow Lucifer in his uprising against God's authority. This fraction reveals the massive scale of the heavenly rebellion. If angels number in the millions or billions, as suggested by biblical descriptions of heavenly hosts, then the fallen angels represent an enormous army of rebellious spirits. Daniel chapter 7 describes thousands ministering before God and 10,000 times 10,000 standing before him, suggesting astronomical numbers of created beings. The symbolic significance of 1/3 appears throughout Scripture as representing a substantial but not majority portion. This proportion indicates that Satan's rebellion was significant enough to be devastating, but not powerful enough to threaten God's ultimate authority. 2/3 of the angelic host remained loyal, ensuring that righteousness maintained numerical superiority over rebellion. The recruitment process demonstrates Satan's persuasive abilities and the voluntary nature of angelic rebellion. Each fallen angel made an individual choice to reject God's authority and follow Satan's promises of independence and power. Their decision was not based on ignorance or deception about God's character, since they had direct knowledge of his glory and goodness. These fallen angels now serve in Satan's kingdom of darkness, organized into principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, and spiritual wickedness in high places as described in Ephesians chapter 6. They operate under Satan's command to oppose God's purposes on earth, though they remain subject to divine limitations and ultimate judgment. Judgment and banishment. The immediate consequence of angelic rebellion was expulsion from heaven's glory into outer darkness. Jesus Christ himself witnessed this event, declaring in Luke chapter 10, verse 18, "I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven." This dramatic imagery describes the swift and irreversible nature of divine judgment against rebellious angels. Outer darkness represents the spiritual realm, where fallen angels now exist, separated from God's presence and light. Matthew chapter 8, verse 12, and other passages describe this condition as a place of weeping and gnashing of teeth, indicating the torment of beings who once enjoyed perfect fellowship with their Creator, but now experience eternal separation from His glory. The fallen angels await their final judgment in the lake of fire, which Matthew chapter 25, verse 41, identifies as everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. This ultimate destination was specifically created for rebellious spiritual beings, not for humanity, though humans who reject God's salvation will share this fate. 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 4 explains that God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. These chains represent divine limitations placed upon fallen angels, restricting their activities and ensuring they cannot exceed the boundaries God has established. The banishment includes loss of their original glory, power, and position in heaven's hierarchy. Fallen angels retain their supernatural abilities, but operate under divine constraint, unable to return to their former state or achieve their rebellious goals. Their judgment serves as a permanent reminder that rebellion against God results in irreversible consequences. Remaining loyal hosts. Michael the archangel stands as the supreme commander of God's faithful angels, maintaining his position as protector and warrior throughout the cosmic conflict. His name, meaning "who is like God," serves as a constant declaration of divine supremacy against Satan's prideful claims. Michael appears in Daniel, Jude, and Revelation as the one who fights for God's people and leads heavenly armies in spiritual warfare. Gabriel serves as God's chief messenger, delivering crucial announcements throughout biblical history. His name means "God is my strength," and he appears to Daniel, Zacharias, and Mary to announce prophetic events and divine interventions. Gabriel's faithfulness demonstrates the loyalty of angels who chose to maintain their service to God rather than follow Satan's rebellion. The Seraphim represent the highest order of angels who surround God's throne in continuous worship. Isaiah chapter 6 describes these six-winged beings who cry, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." Their constant proclamation of God's holiness stands in direct contrast to Satan's prideful self-exaltation and serves as the eternal standard of proper angelic behavior. Cherubim guard God's holiness and execute divine judgment, as seen when they prevented access to the tree of life after humanity's fall. Ezekiel's visions describe these four-faced beings who carry God's throne and represent his omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence, and sovereignty. Their continued service demonstrates unwavering loyalty, despite witnessing the rebellion of their former colleague Lucifer. The loyal hosts maintain heaven's worship, warfare, and service functions that existed before the rebellion. They continue to serve as ministering spirits sent forth to minister to those who shall be heirs of salvation, proving that God's purposes proceed unhindered despite angelic rebellion. The lesson of rebellion. Pride serves as the fundamental root of all angelic rebellion, transforming worship into self-exaltation and service into selfish ambition. Lucifer's fall demonstrates how even the most privileged and perfect created being can corrupt himself through pride in his own beauty, wisdom, and position. 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 6 warns against putting novices in positions of authority, lest being lifted up with pride, he fall into the condemnation of the devil. Deception operates as rebellion's primary weapon, convincing rational beings to reject obvious truth in favor of appealing lies. Satan's I will statements reveal how deception works by promising independence, equality with God, and freedom from divine authority. The same deceptive pattern appears in Eden when the serpent promised Eve, "Ye shall be as gods," demonstrating that rebellion always involves believing lies about God's character and motives. Divine justice operates with perfect consistency, ensuring that rebellion receives appropriate consequences regardless of the rebel's former position or power. God's judgment against fallen angels establishes the principle that no created being can successfully oppose their creator. The swift and irreversible nature of angelic punishment demonstrates that divine justice operates without partiality or compromise. The cosmic scope of angelic rebellion reveals that the conflict between good and evil extends far beyond human experience into the spiritual realm. This warfare affects all creation and continues until God's final victory over Satan and his followers. Understanding angelic rebellion provides context for human spiritual battles and explains the supernatural opposition that believers face. The permanence of angelic choices contrasts with human opportunity for redemption through Christ's sacrifice. Angels who rebelled cannot be saved because no atonement was provided for them, making their judgment final and irreversible. This reality emphasizes both the severity of rebellion against God and the incredible grace available to humanity through divine mercy.